Today on Stock Charts in Focus, we're going to have some fun digging into my own personal process. I'm going to show you how I use some of the ChartList features on StockCharts.com to execute what I call my observational investing system and my thematic trading approach. The list tools on StockCharts, an incredibly powerful, incredibly important feature of our membership. They can help you execute any trading or investing system that you can think of. We're going to show you some of the ones that I use in my own personal approach to the market. So you know what it is. It's all new. It's all here. It's Stock Charts in Focus. All right, my friends, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for sitting down with me today on Stock Charts in Focus, another episode of our product focus show here on the channel, where we show you around the tools, dive into the site, dig into the features, help you get more value out of Stock Charts. My name is Grayson Roze, Vice President of Operations here at StockCharts.com. And today I think is going to be a really fun episode because, as we've done a couple of times in the past, we're actually going to put my own personal account on display. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about some of the tools and features that I use in my own personal approach to the markets. Now, specifically, what we're going to talk about today is how I use the chart list features of Stock Charts, both in Sharp Charts and in ACP, applies in both worlds, to manage what I call my observational investing approach and my thematic trading approach. So a couple of different things from my own personal toolkit that we're going to show off today. And in the process, we're going to have a ton of fun. The goal here really is not necessarily to get you to embrace these same concepts, but it is to get you thinking about how chart lists can help you in some creative ways. We're going to have some fun. We're going to put my account on display. Let's get right to it. So here we are. We're starting on the members dashboard. Of course, the first page that you see when you log into your Stock Charts account, really one that I like to call the heart and soul of your Stock Charts account, because everything is here. Of course, you've got access to all the member tools over on the left. You've got the market overview. You've got all of these customizable panels. You can choose your different views. So we've done episodes on this in the past, how to set up your dashboard. But if you are actually not a member and you're tuning in for today's show, this is one of the most powerful resources on the site, really. So much here. This is actually one of the sort of portals that I use, if you will, to watch the market every day. And the dashboard, an incredibly powerful feature that you actually don't have access to as a free user. So a great reason to sign up. But if you are a member, remember you can customize this page with a ton of different things. We're starting here though because it's also a great listing of all of the chart lists in your account. So we're going to actually scroll down to this chart list section. You can see I have tons and tons of chart lists in my own personal account. But what we're looking at today is a block that all starts with little equal sign. So starts up here with favorites and goes all the way down to really kind of Twitter targets or ETF discoveries. But this block of chart lists is what we are going to talk about today. So I put out a note a couple of days ago, actually, about what I call observational investing. And that's really kind of the inspiration for this show, digging into that concept a little more. Had some good feedback to it and thought it would be a great opportunity to kind of show you how I apply this concept here in Stock Charts. The idea, though, is that, we're all familiar with technical analysis, obviously the study of charts. We're all familiar with fundamental analysis, digging into more of the corporate fundamentals, earnings, things like that. A lot of people talk about the blending of those two. Actually, we just sat down yesterday with Mark Chaikin for a very special interview that's going to be coming out next week. But Mark was talking about how he blends the fundamentals and the technicals together into a stronger approach through the Chaikin Power Gauge, which is something that we just rolled out in ACP. This is something that I felt strongly about for a long time, something I wrote about in my book, Tensile Trading. In my case, I called it rational analysis, the blending of fundamentals and technicals, finding sort of a balance between those two. I've had great conversations with folks like Ralph Acampora, really kind of almost the founding father of modern technical analysis in a lot of ways. Ralph likes to call this fusion analysis. So this idea of blending fundamentals and technicals into a more powerful, more complete approach makes a lot of sense. I have felt, though, for a long time, like there's a third component. And for me, that third component is what I like to call the observationals. It's the opportunity to step back, get away from the charts, get away from the balance sheets and the earnings reports and all of that stuff, and just ask yourself, does this company make sense? Does it make sense for this company to be growing in the world around me? Does it make sense for this stock to move higher because the company, the product, the service behind it, whatever it is, makes sense to me? Am I observing out in the real world good things happening with this business, with this company, with this product or this service? So for me, bringing in that kind of step back from the screens and think about it from a real world perspective, bringing that into your approach is what I call the observationals. Now, it's obviously the smallest of those three, and for me, technicals are by far the biggest. But if we think about this kind of as a Venn diagram, we've got a big old bubble for technicals. We've got a smaller bubble for fundamentals, and in this case, we've got an even smaller bubble for observationals. But I want to position myself right in the middle where all three of those meet. So when I think about my approach to the market, it's not just that I'm seeing things on the charts. It's not just that I'm seeing great earnings reports and a company that's really thriving sort of from a fundamental standpoint. It's also that company has a great product or a great service or fits into the world around me in a way that makes sense. It's kind of my opportunity to step back and really observe the world around me and bring that into my stock discovery process, into my portfolio management, whatever you have there. Now, the other concept that we're going to talk about here is thematic trading. You can see all of these different theme trades lists as well. And a lot of these have names that you're probably familiar with. Things like automation, things like cybersecurity, online shopping, pet care, remote work, all of those different themes that we talk about. I actually build up lists for all of those. So we're going to get into that as well in just a minute. Again, all of this applies in both SharpCharts and ACP. Actually, over in ACP, I've got very similar lists. I kind of maintain them in two different places, but it's a nice little demonstration here in SharpCharts. So that's where we're working out of today. But let's talk about this observationals concept a little bit, and I'll actually show you how the chart list comes in handy. So again, with this concept, really what we're doing is trying to observe the world around us, and we're stepping back from the charts, we're stepping back from the earnings reports, and we're just saying, what are the companies, the products, the services that we love out in the world? Things that we use, things that we see our friends using, things that we see our family relying on. Any of those concepts can fit into this kind of observational approach. So what I actually do is I've created two lists in this case in my account. One that's kind of the higher level though is what I call my like list. And this is basically just, for lack of a better word, a dump bucket. So as I'm going through my daily life, I've got StockCharts on my laptop and my tablet and my phone and everything. I've got this list actually pulled up in a separate little tab generally. And as I'm going through my daily life, if I see a product, a service, a company that I like, I just dump it right in here if it's a publicly traded company. So we can actually jump over to this. I'll show you this in the summary view. Here are some of the companies that fit into this. Just generally companies that sort of catch my eye, products that catch my eye, things that I hear people talking about, things that I use in my own personal life. I just dump them right into this list, what I call my like list. Now, that's sort of the first step of that observational approach, is just observing that world around me and keeping tabs on it. From there, though, I can start to bring in my technicals and even the fundamentals a little bit. So what I can do by building up this like list and maintaining it over time, adding to it, maybe even removing stuff, but generally adding to this like list over time, every weekend I can come in here, I can pull up my like list, jump over to something like 10 per page view, and I can start to scroll through these charts. So I can take those observationals, take the things that I'm seeing in the world around me, create a list for it, and then I can review that list every week. And I've got the charts right there for me, and I'm using the charts to tell me when something is actually starting to work. So for instance, let's say you hear a lot of people talking about Airbnb. So I throw that one onto my like list, and I start reviewing the chart every weekend. Airbnb, a really interesting company, something that's kind of changing the world, something that from an observational standpoint makes a lot of sense. This move to kind of that more consumer friendly, more personable, rent a house kind of travel model. So makes a ton of sense to me from an observational approach. But here, in this case, I've got Airbnb added to my like list. And when I come here every Sunday, this chart isn't really telling me that it's time to jump into Airbnb. We've got a stock that's sure rocketed higher after the IPO, but it's really been kind of going sideways, drifting sideways. And this chart is not saying that Airbnb is ready to make it from the like list into my portfolio or even into any of my other watch lists. So I can come here and I can say, I'm still keeping an eye on it because observationally I'm interested in Airbnb, but I'm going to move on because this one isn't ready. Now I can come down to something like Adobe though, a great product, one that we use for a lot of our work here at StockCharts, one that a lot of us use for, file sharing and documents, so many different uses of Adobe, a really, really great company. And so I can see that for a while, this was actually similar to Airbnb in some ways, just kind of drifting sideways. But Airbnb started to make this breakout. It's one from my like list. It's one that makes a ton of sense to me observationally. And so as it starts to make this breakout, I'm there kind of ready to catch it. And in this case, the charts are telling me that maybe it's time to jump on Airbnb around this breakout level. We saw relative strength picking up. We saw Adobe start to outperform the market. We saw it breaking out to new highs, breaking out of this consolidation pattern. So lots of good things happening on this chart. And again, because I'm kind of maintaining that like list, that observationals list, I'm ready to catch it. Now I can do this again and again and again, go through this list every week and keep an eye on these companies that I find really interesting purely from a product standpoint or purely from sort of this observational standpoint. I can monitor those every week. And by maintaining this list, it makes it really easy to do that. So again, the other piece of my process, in addition to the technicals and in addition to the fundamentals, I've got this third little bucket that for me is the observationals. That's what I like to call it. And I really apply that simply by keeping these lists of stocks that intrigue me, companies that intrigue me, and reviewing those every weekend. Could be, could be once a month. Doesn't have to be every week. Maybe it's even shorter, depending on your trading time frame. For me, a weekly review on those is kind of the sweet spot. That's what fits in with me. But again, this is kind of how I apply that observational approach. And it's all really driven, the action is driven by the technicals primarily. I mentioned that that's the biggest bucket. So the idea here again is that I'm waiting for the charts to tell me that it's time to jump on one of these. I'm not buying Airbnb just because I think it's a great product and I'm sure it's going to do well. That's not enough. I want to have a data-driven approach. I want to be objective in my reasoning for buying a stock. So it's one thing to put it on my watch list because I'm interested in Airbnb, but it's another to actually jump on that trade or that investment because the charts are really telling me now's the time. Airbnb's outperforming. It's time to get into it. So as you can see with those two little examples there, Airbnb versus Adobe, actually a great representation of when to just kind of keep watching and when you might actually want to jump on something and kind of how this works. So that's our first stop today, talking about the observationals, talking about maintaining this like list. And as we'll show off in just a minute, I can actually run scans on this list. That's the other thing that makes this really powerful. I can run scans on it for any criteria that I want, whether it's new highs or specific technical patterns, anything that I can think of. I can actually scan this list using the StockCharts scan engine. Really easy to do that. We'll show you that when we get to the theme trades part. I can also set alerts on this. So I've actually got alerts created for these lists. So if something in one of these lists starts to break out to a new high, I've actually got alerts set. I get a notification to my email, my phone, the website, all of that good stuff. So by creating these lists and maintaining these lists, they can actually help me over time, especially when I combine them with the scans and alerts tools on StockCharts. So we'll jump back over to the chart list block. We've talked about the observationals a little bit. I think that's hopefully making sense to you, maintaining that watch list of companies that you love, services that you use, products that you find really intriguing. The next piece of this, though, is what I call my theme trades lists. A very similar concept. These are effectively, dump buckets, places where I'm just dumping stocks in, also dumping in ETFs as well. And they are there purely as sort of maintenance lists. They're things that I can actually jump into and watch and review. But in general, I'm just kind of maintaining these groups, almost as if they're indexes. They're in some ways my own personal little indexes where I'm actually going to be able to jump in and look at the charts for all the individual securities within these lists. So the idea here is that, we hear these themes out there in the market a lot. We hear people talking about Cloud. Oh, the cloud is growing. Oh, cybersecurity is getting a boost. Oh, remote work with everything that's been happening with the COVID-19 pandemic. Remote work is really taking off, or everyone's shifting to e-commerce, to online shopping. Those are themes. I think about those as themes. A lot of those, as they grow, as they get bigger and bigger, something like cloud, we actually see ETFs that start to be built around a lot of those themes. So we now have pet care ETFs. We have online shopping ETFs, e-commerce ETFs. We have ETFs for cybersecurity and for the cloud. A lot of these themes actually get specific funds for them. But there are also a lot of individual names, individual stocks that fit into these themes. So I personally love to create lists for those themes as they sort of start to pop up on my radar. And again, I'm maintaining those lists, maintaining those sort of theme trade lists as I go. They become places for me to look. So when these themes start to make sense to me, for instance, the cloud is one that's made sense to me for years. StockCharts runs up on the cloud. That was a big move for us a couple of years ago, migrating to the cloud. So I've kind of seen that process, and I've seen how transformative it can be for a business firsthand, in my case, which I'm fortunate to have seen. But I can actually think about that theme. It makes a ton of sense to me, more businesses moving to the cloud. And so I've built a list around that theme. The same goes for cybersecurity, an incredibly important theme as we continue to move more and more into the digital age. So I can build up a list around cybersecurity. We'll actually jump into that one for fun. I'll pull up that summary page and show you how this works. Any of these themes, though, that sort of pop onto my radar, I'll run into my account and I'll create what I call a theme trades list for it. Now, as I go, just like we were doing with that observational list, I'm just kind of populating it with ETFs in this case and individual stocks that fit into the theme. So here in the cybersecurity list, what we can see a bunch of ETFs up at the top. I actually sort of block those off separately with a little label at the start to separate them from the individual stocks. But I've got all those ETFs up at the top of this list. So we've got, for instance, a Global X cybersecurity list. We've got that cyber ETF that a lot of people have been talking about. A lot of these have been doing really well too. Hack is another one. A lot of these ETFs that fit into the cybersecurity theme, I've dumped those into this list. I then go to the next level down and I take all of the stocks that fit into that cybersecurity theme, things like CrowdStrike, things like FireEye or Fortinet, Cloudflare, Okta, a lot of these companies, Rapid7 that fit into this cybersecurity theme. I'll just dump them into this list. And there's really no criteria to that move other than does it fit the theme? I'm not sweeping these for strong charts at one time. Again, what I'm trying to do is build up a list almost as its own little index of stocks that fit this theme. Because from there, what I can then start to do, just like we were doing with that observationals list, I can pull this up on the weekend during my sort of weekend review, and I can start to go through these charts. And when one of them starts to act well, when one of them sets up nicely, I'm there ready to catch it. I've got a theme that makes sense to me, and I'm lining that up with charts that are starting to take off. That is an incredibly powerful concept. So again, here up at the top of this list, we've got all those ETFs. So in this case, we're looking at the cybersecurity group as a whole. In this case, this is the Global X Bug ETF. So we've got that one actually setting up nicely, has been moving up to new highs, kind of breaking out of a consolidation range. Similar pattern on cyber. And I'm actually going to scroll through a couple of these pretty quickly. Here's iHack. We've got one more of those ETFs down here into the Wisdom Tree Fund, which is getting back up to new highs. So a lot of those ETFs up at the top. But then here we start with the individual stocks, and this is where it gets pretty interesting. So we've got something like Checkpoint, which fits into this cybersecurity theme. Drifting sideways, underperforming the market here. This chart is telling me that Checkpoint isn't ready. Cybersecurity might be a great theme, but within that group, Checkpoint isn't really the one that I want to go after. We can scroll down to CrowdStrike, a very different looking chart. In this case, we've got a stock that's been outperforming the market, has been consolidating sideways, but is starting to try to break out of that range and move higher once again. So CrowdStrike, a cybersecurity name, fits in with this theme. I'm right there ready to catch it on the weekend. And if this really starts to set up nicely and move in a way that I want to see, I can jump on that theme trade, that thematic trade. We can keep going through this. So Everbridge, another one drifting sideways, underperforming the market, not really ready. The charts are telling me that this one is not ready for me to jump on. We can do that again with FireEye, a a similar chart actually breaking down quite badly today. Must be on an earnings report or something like that. So again, I'm flipping through all of these charts every weekend. Fortinet has been incredibly strong. We can see that beautiful, beautiful relative strength, an incredibly strong trend out of this name. So again, I'm kind of ready to jump on these. I'm watching for things like these breakouts. Back here in kind of early 2021, when Fortinet was starting to break out, I would have been right there to catch this. So instead of just kind of randomly going about some of this thematic trading, a lot of people talk about this, bringing some of those themes into their portfolio. Well, I find that the best way to do this is actually to create these lists. We'll jump back to the dashboard to give you a sense of this. We'll jump back over here and scroll back down to our theme trades lists. I find that the best way to do this is create these chart lists for each of those different themes. Fill them in as you go. As you stumble across new stocks or new funds that fit into those themes, you can maintain these lists over time, and they become a really powerful resource for you. I actually find that a lot of my best trades, a lot of my best investments come out of some of these themes. But again, it's all kind of starting with that slightly observational approach, and then bringing in the charts, bringing in the fundamentals in some cases, and really sort of letting the charts, letting price and relative strength tell me when it's actually time to jump on one of these opportunities. So that's how I bring in this thematic approach and this observational approach using chart lists. Incredibly important list for me, incredibly powerful pieces of my own StockCharts account. Now, before we wrap up today's show, I do want to show you the scans and alerts features because, as I mentioned, that's another really powerful way that I actually monitor these lists, and a really powerful way for me to make sure that I'm on top of anything that's happening in these lists. Obviously, as you can see, with the number of stocks and funds in these lists, a lot of stocks to sweep. So instead of having to go through all of these different charts every single weekend, I can actually use scans and alerts to kind of do that for me. So we're going to scroll right up to here. We'll actually use this as an opportunity. So here we are on the dashboard. I've got the scans and alerts row turned on, which gives me access to all of my saved scans and a little visibility into all of my saved alerts right in one place. So I've actually set up in my account specific scans and specific alerts that scan these specific chart lists that we were just looking at. So you can see this actually briefly here in the alerts panel. I've got an alert set for new 52-week highs, and I've labeled it with theme trades because in this case, it's actually looking for stocks and funds making new 52-week highs just within that group of chart lists, those theme trades chart lists. I've got another one here that's actually within 5% of a new 52-week high. You can see that there. I've got one set for PNF triple top breakouts. That actually brings in another watch list that I have as well. But the idea here is that I can actually set up alerts for those specific groups of chart lists. We'll show you how this works on the scan page, because actually what you can do is take one of those scans and then copy it over to the advanced alert engine and set that up in the exact same way. The syntax, as we call it, for scans and alerts is actually the same. So creating those alerts is pretty easy once you've actually created the scans for them. So we'll actually jump over here to the advanced scan workbench. I'm going to open that up. Makes this a little bit easier to see. I'm going to show you how these look and then briefly show you how you can actually set these up for your own account if you'd like to do something similar. So once we're over here on the advanced scan workbench, up in the your saved scans section, we're going to open up that menu. And you can see I've actually up at the top got a couple of different saved scans here, and one of them says theme trades, new 52-week highs. So I'm going to open that, and you'll see that this big wall of scan syntax actually just has a list of those chart lists. In this case, these are the actual chart list IDs, sort of behind the scenes. But what we can do is put these in very, very easily using some of the interface down below. I'll show you that in just a second. But what we're doing here in this case is we're scanning a group of chart lists for new 52-week highs. And because I have those chart lists created and because I'm maintaining them over time, it makes it really easy to run this scan or take all this syntax, copy it over to the advanced alert engine and actually create automated alerts for the same criteria. What we're doing though is taking all of these lists. You can see it says and favorites list is 82. or all of these. So it's kind of going through this list or this one or this one or this one or this one, groups all of those together into one big list. And then at the bottom, we have our little scan criteria, which says, and daily high is greater than yesterday's daily over the last 253 trading sessions. So this equates to new 52-week highs. So what we're doing, we're grouping all those chart lists together sort of under one and clause. And then at the bottom, we've got our scan syntax that we're running. We can do new 52-week highs. We can do P&F triple top breakouts. We can do all-time highs. We got tons and tons of different options. Anything that you want to scan for, you can do it. And the important part is you can actually do it on a specific group of chart lists. So for me, as I'm going through this approach, as I'm trying to follow those observationals that I've been maintaining in that like list, or as I'm trying to keep track of what's working across some of these different themes out in the market, themes that make sense to me, makes it really easy to do that here by just running scans and finding the ones that are really setting up nicely based on the technical criteria that I want to see. So it's really easy to do this. Down here at the bottom under the scan components section, you've actually got a group in here for chart lists. So when you open up this menu, it's going to open up all of your different chart lists in this menu. And all you have to do is select something. So for instance, we could select our like list, and then we just hit add. When we do that and we scroll back up, in this case, it's dropped it kind of at the bottom, but you can see that that adds that syntax for you. So you don't have to go fumbling around, typing this in, figuring out what the chart list ID is. You can actually just come down to this scan component section at the bottom, select the chart list that you want to scan and hit add. That's automatically going to do that for you. So this little piece here at the bottom is what's been added to that. And I've just done that over and over again to add all of those different chart lists that I want to scan into this syntax, into this group. I hit save, and then that is automatically stored into my account, and I can run this over and over again. So actually, once we come here, once we create our scan, in this case, we're looking for new 52-week highs in those theme trades list and the observationals list. I hit run, and here's what we get back. We've got 20 stocks now that are actually making new 52-week highs and funds. We've got, for instance, LIT in there, lithium making a new 52-week high. But it makes it really easy to sweep all of those chart lists kind of in one go. Because I've created those lists, because I'm maintaining them, and because I've created this scan, here are 20 stocks that I can start with, all of which are going to be setting up nicely because they're all trading up at new 52-week highs. We can do the same thing again with alerts. I know I've said that a couple of times, but you can literally just copy and paste that same scan syntax over into the alert engine. So actually, when you come up here to your alerts, and we switch over to the technical alert workbench, select advanced alert right here. This box and all of this user interface down here below looks very, very similar. It's all kind of based on the same scan engine. So you can actually just take that syntax, copy and paste it right into this box, save that, and set up an advanced alert for the exact same criteria. So I know we covered a ton on today's show, but hopefully a fun one, hopefully gave you a sense of kind of some of the tools that I use in my own approach to the markets here on StockCharts. Again, ChartLists, one of the most powerful features. In some ways, truly, ChartLists are almost more powerful than the charts themselves, creating this structure, creating this organization. They really can allow you to take any trading or investing system that you want and build that into your own account. It becomes how you watch the markets, how you maintain your watch list, how you monitor your portfolios, and all of that. Everything that goes into successful investing, successful trading really starts with a successful chart list organization, maintaining those market evaluation lists, the watch lists, the portfolio lists, everything there. So hopefully this has given you a sense of kind of how I maintain some of my my watch lists, some of my discovery lists. These resources can be incredibly powerful. Hopefully, you're also intrigued by this concept of the observational investing, maybe the thematic trading as well. Two concepts that have worked really well for me, things that I love, and they, give me kind of a connection to what I'm buying in the market, which is always fun. We try to be as emotionless as possible, but it's always more intriguing to buy something when you see a product, a service, something out there in the world that makes sense to you, whether it's shoes that you actually wear or a subscription that you actually pay for. things that you actually use, things that you observe out in the world around you working, things that you love. When those charts start to work for those kind of companies and you can really profit from that observation, I find that makes it all the more fun to do what we're doing here in the market. So that's how I've kind of brought that into my approach, keeping this observational list, keeping those thematic trading lists, and then letting the charts tell me when it's time to actually jump on some of those opportunities. So I know we covered a ton today. Hopefully you got a sense, though, of also how you can scan chart lists, how you can set alerts, all that good stuff. Of course, I want to thank you so much for joining me on today's episode of Stock Charts in Focus. It's been a fun one to dig into my personal account with you here on today's show. Remember, though, we do this every Friday, 3:30 p.m. Eastern Time on StockCharts TV. You can watch live when it airs at 3:30 p.m. Eastern Time every Friday. But also catch this up on our YouTube channel. We've got this episode and more up on the YouTube channel as well. And, of course, the new on-demand platform at StockChartsTV.com. You can sign up there, get access across all of your different devices, Roku, Apple TV, Chromecast, your iPhone, your Android devices, everywhere that you could possibly want to watch StockCharts TV. It's possible now with the new on-demand platform. You can sign up for that for free at StockChartsTV.com. Definitely go explore what we're doing up at that new OTT on-demand platform. Really exciting stuff. So hopefully I'll see you, though, again on another episode of Stock Charts in Focus next Friday. We're going to have a fun one as we dig into some changes coming to ACP, some things happening with some plugins, lots to cover in the next couple of weeks. So lots coming on this show. Until then, though, my name is Grayson Roze, Vice President of Operations here at Stock Charts. Thank you for joining me. I'll see you on the next one. Chart on, my friends.
Hey guys, Dave Keller here with StockCharts.com. Thanks so much for watching our video. If you enjoyed it, and we hope you did, hit the like button right below. Also, we have so much new content every day. Consider subscribing to the channel. Just hit the subscribe button in the video or right below. Thanks for watching. Stay safe. Have a fantastic day.